Let us begin with some lines from a poem which points to self-realization in the highest sense. There is a supreme knowledge which knows no limits. It is like a river that has no banks, no source, and no mouth. Its nature is light, pure light, and it is hidden in every human heart. The teachings on non-duality shed light on this higher knowledge. The ultimate aim is to satisfy our desire for lasting fulfillment. They provide a way of practice which leads to peace of mind. Peace of mind is not an end in itself. Why then do we need to train our mind in peacefulness? Because only when we are truly peaceful can we intuitively grasp that there is far more to our being than the stream of thoughts and feelings. As our opening verse discloses to us, there is a supreme and infinite knowledge hidden in every human heart. One of the words found in the Upanishads that is used to indicate the nature of this knowledge is purna, perfection. It can also be translated as infinite, fullness, completeness. This knowledge is awaiting discovery within us. It is the supreme knowledge or wisdom and is perfect in every sense of that word. Perfect in being free from all defect. Perfect in its stability, for it is everlasting. Perfect in beauty and blissfulness. At this point, we may be thinking that this is all idealism, a utopian vision that has no correspondence with reality. Doesn't our experience prove to us that perfection is beyond our reach? Our joys in the world are mingled with anxiety and fear of loss. Our knowledge, however learned we may appear to be, is puny compared with what we do not know. We live our life and then vanish into an obscurity of which we have no certain knowledge. So this idealistic worldview can only be based on delusion or wishful thinking. And yet, human beings do have a sense of perfection. This sense of perfection is innate in much of our thinking. We are forever charging things in terms of good, better, best. We want the best. We feel we deserve the best. And in our secret thoughts, we're probably rooted in the conviction that we are the best. There is some truth in the story of the man who was praying aloud, declaring himself to be the worst of sinners. Afterwards, someone who had overheard him asked, "Are you really that bad?" He replied angrily, "Bad? How dare you suggest I'm bad?" We have an affinity or relationship with perfection. and this adds a speck of insincerity to our professions of guilt and imperfection. Then how can we learn to be ourselves in the truest and wisest sense? Our understanding deepens when we realize that the source of perfection is something that transcends our individual nature, however brilliant or accomplished we may be. This is because the ultimate perfection must be beyond change, whereas our life in this world is subject to continuous change and eventual dissolution. There are certain moments of perfection or close to perfection, and these may extend into minutes or hours. Sometimes our situation in life may seem almost ideal. At these times, our focused attention on something pleasurable or pleasing gives rise in our mind to a timeless bliss. But such times pass, and the precise combination of circumstances which prompted the joy cannot be accurately repeated. For enduring satisfaction, we must look elsewhere. So let us return to those opening words. The pure light of knowledge is hidden in every human heart. A story tells how the goddess of happiness grew tired of the incessant prayers of humankind, chiefly for material benefits. So she sought a refuge free from disturbance. There were many suggestions as to where she could hide, each advocating some remote location. In the end, only one idea seemed perfectly right, which the goddess of happiness adopted immediately. The advice was, install yourself in the human heart. No one will ever think of seeking you there. The human heart is here a metaphor for the human mind, the inner organ, which is the seat of our thinking and feeling. Let us try to clarify what this teaching is pointing to. It's a pointer to the crucial fact that there are in our mind higher potentialities which relate to our nature as infinite perfection and complete happiness. And in the words of our opening verse, there is a supreme knowledge which knows no limits. Its nature is light, pure light, and it is hidden in every human heart. It's all very well to say this, but where is this perfection? It's far from obvious that our mind conceals within itself anything of supreme value and perfection. This perfection can't be in the thoughts, because thoughts come and go, and in the mind all we find are thoughts. But there is something more than thought, higher than thought. And it is this higher principle that we need to investigate. For the inner world of the mind shares its space, so to say, with another principle, which is superior to the mind. What is this principle? Why don't we see it? That principle is you, your real being, your real I. That superior principle is you yourself, as the ground of pure being, which supports the mind, which gives it cohesion and continuity. Your real I can also be signified as the consciousness in you before which your thoughts appear. Everyone is aware of the passing nature of thoughts. This proves that there is a deeper awareness which witnesses the coming and going of thought, but which itself does not come and go. This is our consciousness. It is not part of the mind, it transcends the mind. It is the immediacy of the experience, I am and I know, which is always with us because it is our true self. Consciousness and being are two ways of considering the true nature of our innermost self. This self never changes and therefore is free from the imperfection called change. Being the innermost consciousness, the ultimate awareness, it is never an object of thought. Therefore, no defect can ever be discovered in it. And because of this taintlessness, the innermost self is also the ultimate beauty and bliss, awaiting discovery at the core of our nature. This is the perfection we seek, and it is to be found within our own being, as not other than that being, within our unconsciousness, as not other than that consciousness. We may say, you've done a complete circle and have arrived back at that utopian idealism we criticized earlier. You are asserting something that can never be verified in our actual experience. But this is not the case. There was a time, not so long ago, when people rejected as futile the idea that oil could be extracted from the bed of the sea. They didn't believe that oil was there to start with, and even if, by some fantasy, there was oil, you could never develop the technology to master such a hostile environment. But time has proved otherwise. Through developments in marine engineering, the seabed has yielded its secrets, and sea-based oil and gas has become now a global phenomenon. We can draw a parallel with our mind. At first, it does seem totally unreasonable to claim that within our own being there is a treasury of higher values such as light, infinity, perfection, and bliss. And so we search for durable happiness through innumerable experiences. It is when we fail to discover lasting joy that we may pause and reflect more deeply. It is then that we may find ourselves giving closer attention to these teachings about the true self and its perfect, infinite nature. A way of inner progress will open to us an opportunity to pursue the path to inner freedom through self-realization. On this path, we find that the methods involve searching within our own being in a particular way. It's not a question of searching and analyzing the thoughts, but of quietening them. In our serenity of mind, we become aware of that deeper principle of consciousness and pure being, which underlies all our experience. Through this intelligent, inwardly directed stilling of the mind, we discover that there is indeed a fresh source of knowledge, which is the very nature of our true self. And this is not the knowledge that is a means to some other end. It is pure knowing, infinite, like that river that has no banks, no source, no mouth. Such knowledge is its own justification and value. Being blissful and faultless, it is its own reward, its own goal. We may ask, how can the reduction of thought lead to the enhancement of our experience? How can this inwardly directed stillness of mind give rise to the blissful knowledge that emanates from the depths of our own being like a sacred spring? How? One explanation of the power of a quiet mind is that in inner quiescence, a higher part of our mind, usually dormant, becomes operative. And through this faculty called buddhi, we will gain the insight and intuition to see more deeply into ourselves. Let us take a hint from the gentle pastime of bird watching. To be successful, a bird watcher has to be quiet, still, and patient, so that the birds are not aware that they are being watched. Birds are the most animated of creatures, and the instant you talk or move, they take fright and dart away. But if you can stay quiet, still, and patient, almost as if you weren't there, chances are that the birds will come near and you can watch them and learn much from observing their behavior. Compare this with the process of meditation. In meditation, we try to silence the inner chatter We sit still. We do our practice with calm and patience. And it's as if our personality and our ego, our sense of being a separate person, are set aside and forgotten. It is under these non-assertive conditions that our mind is quietened. We can turn our attention to the source of our being. And that source, as we have said, is self-illumined consciousness, pure, infinite being. This is the nature of our I. And we first approach it in stillness, with the help of sentences or symbols that point to its presence. We have to recognize that the mind is not only of interest and value when it is engaged in practical, creative, or intellectual activity. The opposite condition of quiescence is also of great significance. A classical verse points out the nature of the mind when it is under control, free from all ideas, and is focused inwardly on its source, is to be particularly noted. One final point, which has deep significance, concerns the cultivation of the mind that is necessary if we are to realize this deeper reality in our own being. So far, we have made several references to the need for peace, using similar words like tranquility, serenity, and calmness. But to consolidate our higher knowledge, something more is needed. Not just pacification of the mind, but purification. Purification in these teachings is always linked with the conviction that life in its essence is a unity, that all life is one, that to harm another is to harm oneself. Therefore, those who follow the path to self-realization have what is called in the Taittiriya Upanishad the unitive outlook. Where possible, they are peacemakers, bridge builders, and are free from prejudices in favor or against this or that group. As a classical verse puts it, how can one who sees the one self in all cherish hatred for anyone any more than he can hate the limbs of his own body? A little reflection will show that most of the man-made problems in the world are due to the lack of this unitive outlook, which in turn suggests the human heart is not sufficiently purified of its narrowness and prejudice to realize the underlying unity and treat people accordingly. But once this unitive outlook is valued, our inner transformation can be thorough and irreversible. The perfection of our own true self and its oneness with the self of all will be revealed in direct experience as the self-evident truth, the true nature of what is now and always. Let us end by reflecting on this meditation text. Om. Wisdom arises from the depths of our being, when in the stillness and purity of the heart we realize the infinite. Om. Wisdom arises from the depths of our being, when in the stillness and purity of the heart we realize the infinite. Om. Thank you for your attention. See you again soon.